Hi Year 10. Today you will be doing the flame test practical. The objective of today is for you to develop the skill of identifying unknown compounds by the colour that they emit when you heat them in a Bunsen burner. So the whole objective of this unit is for you to develop some skills and techniques that enable you to identify unknown compounds. And we'll be doing that finally next week, and you'll need to complete your booklet. But the flame test is the last skill that you'll need to develop. So far you've done solubility curves, you have done precipitation reactions, partly last term and some of you last week. You can utilise a valency table and a solubility table. Hopefully you can answer questions using a solubility curve. And today what you'll do is heat a range of different ionic compounds in a Bunsen burner. You'll identify the colour that is being emitted from that flame, and you'll be able to use that information to identify unknowns next week. Before you start, we are looking at page 41 in your booklet titled The Flame Test. On page 40 there's a space for you to make some notes. So at the top of page 40 I'd like you to firstly list the safety precautions for today. I want at least 3, if not 4 different things that you will need to do to keep yourself safe. Secondly, I'd like you to write an aim and hypothesis for today's investigation, and then list the ionic compounds just as seen in the method. Okay, you've got them here. List those on page 40 so that then you can make a recording in your books of the colour that was emitted from the flame as you put the ionic compound into the Bunsen burner. Follow the method closely. Keep the volume down so that I can stop you at any point. Wear protective equipment and conduct yourself safely as always. Let me explain a little bit of the theory about why different compounds will emit different colours. So, hopefully this diagram at the bottom here is familiar to you. So what we're looking at is an atom. We've got the nucleus in the centre, and we have a number of electron shells or orbits, energy levels, where the electrons are organised. So if you remember from year 9, they're organised in a particular way with only 2 completing the first energy level and then 8 in the second and so on. So different compounds will have different types of atoms in, and you'll notice the anion and cation. The words should be familiar to you once you look at the compound name on the bottle. Okay. What will happen is you'll clean the nichrome loop, and then you'll dip it into the ionic compound and place it into the hot part of the flame. And what this does is it energizes the electrons. Okay, so what it will do is add some additional energy and move the electrons to a higher energy state. And when they cool down and fall back to their ground state, as we call it, they'll actually emit that energy as a colour of light. If you remember from heat, light and sound in year 9, visible light is on a spectrum here. And what you can see is the wavelength of the visible light, and we can see different energy levels. So if you notice down here, we've got the red light and the yellow, green, blue and violet. Red is the lowest energy level. Okay, so the wave of red light is it has a longer wavelength, lower energy, and as you get towards the violet light, it has much higher energy and a higher wavelength, shorter wavelength, so it's moving up and down more quickly. So that's casting your mind back to year 9. So you can make a judgment about the distance that the electrons have fallen based on the colour of light that's being emitted. Okay. So that's just a little bit of theory about why different compounds emit different levels of light. As they fall back to their ground state and release that energy that you've given to them in the Bunsen flame, they'll emit some light, and you'll be able to describe that light in your books. And if you look at the discussion questions on page 42, it asks you to consider any patterns that you've noticed. Okay. You've actually got the electromagnetic spectrum drawn for you on page 42. I'd like you to address the analysis questions and the discussion questions. So once you've recorded your observations, consider if you can see, identify any patterns in the colour emitted from different compounds. And that is the final skill that you'll need to develop this week. We'll start applying those as we move through the rest of week 3 and week 4 towards the end of this unit. Well done.